Good morning, everybody, and thanks for listening. I'm here to talk to you about Thundelarra, which is an ASX Australian-listed copper-gold explorer with activities very, very close to Sandfire's DeGrussa gold mine. Their copper-gold mine that they commissioned about 3 years ago, we are offering the best possibility of repetitions in the area around that. I'll just explain that briefly. Thundelarra, as I say, is listed on the Australian Stock Exchange, 320 million shares in issue. Market cap's about 30 million Australian dollars, 15 million pounds. Last traded 9.5 cents, about 4.75 pence. We have 6 million Australian dollars in the bank, so we're well funded to do the exploration that we want to do. We have a management structure. The board and people have been around for a very long while through a great number of different cycles, so we have an immense amount of experience. My background, just because it's relevant, is as a geologist originally, but I've also had 30 years in banking and broking, both lending money, corporate advisory, project finance and such like. This is not a unique skill set for a junior explorer CEO, but it's very uncommon. And it's very, very useful to allow us to complete the way we want to go about things and have the best opportunity to deliver success. We've got 4 project regions in Western Australia, 2 in the Northern Territory. As you can see, Pine Creek and Nalia Basin. Nalia's a uranium play, early stage. The others are, Pine Creek is a copper uranium. In the East Kimberley, we have a zinc play, but the main play that I'm talking about here is Carrara Well and Red Boar, which, as I say, is about 900 kilometres north-northeast of Perth in Western Australia. We have 90% interest in these 2 tenements. Carrara Well is the big one up on the left, and Red Boar is this smaller one just here. The DeGrussa, Sandfire's DeGrussa mine sits just here, about 200 metres from the corner of our Red Boar tenement. Sandfire in the last 5 or 6 years has done a lot of exploration to the west, the south, the east, and has found no repetitions of their mineralisation at DeGrussa. We're the only party who's found anything interesting to date, and we have a significant number of opportunities in the next 2 months to improve on what we have found. As I say, Red Boar is very, very close to DeGrussa. I will keep going though here. That is what we found in April last year. This is 28 metres from surface. This is 28% copper. It's 80% chalcopyrite with about 1.5 grams of gold and 1 ounce of silver. That material is very, very close to the surface. We have subsequently found some other intersections, again at the same 28% copper with 7 grams gold and 1 ounce silver as well. Now, this is not a repetition of DeGrussa yet, but it appears to be pipes that we believe will lead down through to a source rock that is of significance. Our presentation, which is available on booth 78, and if anybody has additional questions, come up to booth 78, they'll have all this data. But what this shows is a number of very, very strong intercepts we've had and how we're looking for additional characteristics for this pipe-like system that is leading, we hope, to something at depth. Gossan and Impaler are the 2 main project areas we're looking at. And what I want to show you in this model here is we found these pipes at surface where you can see up here and over here. But I've got a very quick video which I found a prop that is very useful. I'll just play the video quickly, which gives you a better understanding of why we're doing what we are. This is the first Thundelarra V-News for some time, but I thought it was a good time to try and explain to shareholders a little more about what we are doing with our exploration at Red Boar and why we are taking the approach that we are taking. There have been comments made that we are not drilling on a wide enough spacing, and it is important to try and explain to everybody why we are doing things the way we are. The basis for what we're doing is the magnetic image around Red Boar, and that is the main image that I'm showing you now. And what I will then move to in a second is the blow up of that, so that I can point out in a bit more detail exactly what you're doing. On that image you'll see there's 2 main areas. There's one called Impaler and one called Gossan, which is the old Red Boar prospect. What I'm I'm showing here is the blow-up of that. And as you can see, Gossan is at your right as you're looking at it, and Impaler is the new discovery at the left. At Gossan, that big round red dot, we have found two pipes that are a combination of magnetite and chalcopyrite, which is copper mineralisation. These are important because these magnetic signatures that we found help us to explore for new anomalies and new mineralisation, and that's how we found Impaler. What I'm now going to show you is what we think is actually happening beneath these red dots, particularly the one at Gossan. This magnificent assisting tool here is what I've managed to find as a way of showing what is actually happening with the pipes that we've discovered at Gossan and Impaler. The reason why the Impaler dot is less intense than the Gossan dot is because we believe it may be at deeper. It's not at surface, it's at depth. This is shown by these pipes are like this. The two pipes at Gossan are the ones touching the image, and the one nearest to me is Impaler, which is beneath the surface, so it's not right at surface, so it's a more discrete image. Now it's important to recognise that what we have are a series of pipes like this. They're narrow, they're small, but they're high grade, 28% copper. People have asked why we don't just drill on a wide spacing in order to pursue the depth, the mineralisation at depth. If this were a drill hole, and it's much, much wider than it would be at this scale, and you were pursuing this mineralisation, if I just stick a hole like this, most of the times this drill hole will miss the mineralisation. In other words, if you've found mineralisation here, you have to keep really, really close in order to be able to intersect it each time. And as you're following it, it suddenly changes direction. So you've got to keep tight, you've got to be close in order to ensure that you don't lose this mineralisation. The important thing about this is that as we find these different pipes, they will coalesce at depth, and they will help lead us, if we follow them closely, towards what we believe is the mineralisation at source, or the source at depth, which is going to be, hopefully, a major body of mineralisation. And the way of pointing this out is like saying that as you follow this big branch getting closer and closer to the source at depth, what you will find is that this is a pipe that's come out of a much, much larger body of mineralisation, and that is the target we're after. The other thing that we have to the north of Red Boar is the Carrara Well project, and this adds an additional level of prospectivity that we are really excited about at the moment. All the white area in that big part of the north is actually mapped as granite, so at surface it's viewed to be non-prospective. What we're finding now as we do further work is it's a very real possibility that that granite is actually a series of sheets thrust over the top of the sediments that host DeGrussa and Red Boar, and that within that tenement area we have the possibility that's never been previously tested by any party of the repetitions that for a Red Boar and DeGrussa style deposit that Sandfire have not been able to find to the east and the south and the west of DeGrussa. This is a new model and offers really big opportunity over the next couple of months for us to test it and see if we can come up with some very interesting material. It's been independently supported by the Geological Survey of Western Australia, who did some work that proved that the fault at the Jenkins Fault, which is significant, which is this one, and these thrusts from the north are supporting the model that we have. So overall, we have a lot of opportunity at Red Boar and DeGrussa and around Sandfire's area to find a lot of interesting results over the next 2 months. We start drilling at Red Boar and at Carrara Well in about 3 or 4 weeks, mid-May, with results coming through in late May, early June, and through July as well. So there's news flow happening. We're cashed up, we've got the cash to do what we need to do, we've got targets, and it's very, very real next to an opportunity that has significant proven mineralisation to date. We have other things in Pine Creek up in the Northern Territory. These can be discussed if anybody's interested in more detail up at our stand 78. And as I say, from our liquidity over the last year, we've traded 95% of our capital in the last 12 months, and the average trades have been something in the order of 1.2 million per day on average. But we have liquidity, even though we're listed on the ASX. It is not too difficult to get stock on the ASX through brokers. Thank you all very much for listening. Appreciate it. Thank you.